The problem that my signature pedagogy addressed was that social studies at higher levels has typically been taught through teacher-centered lectures and textbook readings. In a national survey of randomly selected teachers, 90% reported using teacher-centered presentations, while only 30% reported using student-centered activities. If a student is a poor reader, long readings from the textbook will not teach them anything. Similarly, many students will struggle to stay focused on the teacher when they are not engaged in the lesson at all. In high school, reading and lecture was the most common form of teaching social studies, which sometimes even made me dislike going to history class. However, in my fieldwork, I have seen teachers using methods like debate and discussion, which is more effective for student engagement, but can also fail as students struggle to grasp the surface level information by themselves. Upon doing my own research, I found evidence in support of different methods for teaching history, and what the expectations of each method should be. Firstly, I found that teacher-centered lectures can be effective for the direct transmission of information, focusing on the surface-level understanding. However, teacher-centered lecture was not seen to be as effective in generating deeper levels of understanding. The next method I researched was student-centered discussions and debates, which was seen to be much more effective in generating deeper levels of understanding and helped me to develop students' argumentation skills. Finally, I found that inquiry is another effective method in developing deeper levels of understanding among students. By allowing them time to think and answer questions, students are developing their practice standards alongside their content standards, the skills required in history, and taking in the information required by their teacher. For my teaching episodes, I plan to use a mix of both teacher-centered lectures and student-centered discussion and inquiry. I did this because I believe that before students begin to read secondary sources and discuss or answer questions, they need some surface-level information and knowledge. I want them to know what facts and information they will be required to recall when engaging in these discussion activities. In both of my lessons, I began by giving a short lecture, where I told them the facts about the information they would be discussing as a class. Once that lecture is completed, I plan to either give them discussion questions to think about or secondary sources to read. When they read the secondary sources, they will use those same sources to form an opinion on their own. This method was used in both my 10-minute mini lesson and my full 30-minute lesson. In my mini lesson, I gave them a short lecture with some facts behind the emancipation of slaves during the Civil War. Then, after having a minute to think over some discussion questions, we answered them as a class. In my full 30-minute lesson, I also gave them a short lecture, where I went over the two differing opinions on the emancipation of slaves. After this, I had them read two secondary sources and argue for one side or the other of this debate. We ended up discussing their opinions on this topic several minutes before ending class. I think my signature pedagogy was a success. In my mini lesson, I did not have a lot of time to convey enough surface level information as I would have wanted, so 4 minutes and 37 seconds in, students were not active in answering the discussion questions. However, in my 30-minute lesson, I was able to give a longer lecture. I sent my students into breakout rooms around 12 minutes and 15 seconds into the full lesson and began making my way through around 15 minutes. In these breakout rooms, I heard students like David and Luigi discussing the material in their given sources. I believe that my lecture helped to prepare them for thinking about this material, which is shown by how fast they were already discussing the source and answering questions. Other evidence showing my signature pedagogy worked was the debate around 24 minutes and 20 seconds. Upon opening the floor, students like Patty, Kevin Dolan, and David all participated and gave their opinion on the topic. This showed me that my method generated deep-level understanding among multiple students. More evidence showing why the reading and discussion was effective was how many of them formed opinions outside of my provided framework. At 25 minutes into the lesson, Patty and Kevin began to say how this debate does not really have one side and why they sit in the middle. This shows me how my method worked for deeper understanding because they formed opinions themselves. Based on all of my evidence, I feel that my signature pedagogy was a success. My mini lesson proved that lecture is essential because the teacher needs to pass along essential information at times. Once I passed along what I felt to be a proper amount, they were successful in generating their own thoughts. My mini lesson helped to prove that the lecture I give is essential for the debate and discussion, which my full lesson helped to prove is a beneficial way of teaching.